Welcome back to another video, and today we got our Week 14 College Basketball Power 40 Rankings video, and we're here every single Monday, every single week, giving you our updated Power 40 rankings. We also do college football, NFL, NBA, and MLB content every single week while those seasons are going, so if any of that interests you, if you are new, make sure you go down there, subscribe, turn on the noties. But let's go ahead and jump right in to the Power 40, starting off at the bottom, making our way all the way up to number 1. And at number 40, I'm going to go ahead and keep Miami in here at 40, down 2 spots. I'm really not sure how good Miami is, but they're 17-5. They're looking like a pretty decent team. They got some pretty good KenPom numbers. They're 6-3 in ACC play. They're 37th in KenPom, top 50 offense and defense. I don't know. Miami did lose this past week to Cal by 1 point. That was a tough loss. Cal is actually a pretty decent team, though. Cal's sitting at 16-6 right now. I actually thought about ranking them. I'll keep Miami in here, though, but realistically, I'm not sure how legit this team is. I will say Malik Renew's been pretty good for them. Trey Donaldson, they got some good players. They got some talent, but again, like, could this team make the tournament? They could also miss the tournament, but at 17-5, I'm giving them some respect. They were in it last week. I didn't feel like they deserved to be dropped out. Also, not really much teams made a case for jumping into the Power 40 this week. Number 39 is going to be St. Mary's, dropping down 2 spots. They did suffer a loss to Gonzaga. I mean, on the road against Gonzaga, they lost by 8 points. Gonzaga's a top 10 team. St. Mary's looked pretty good in this game as well. Morauskas, he's a pretty good player, 15 points in that game against Gonzaga, but ultimately St. Mary's does fall. I expected Gonzaga to win this game. Gonzaga is the much better team, but St. Mary's was in it for quite a while. They were actually leading for a pretty long time, actually, in the second half. Gonzaga was out to a lead in the first half, and then St. Mary's closed the first half on a pretty good run. They carried that lead into the second half for a little bit, but Gonzaga did start to pull away when it was around 12-ish minutes, 11 minutes in the second half, and St. Mary's just couldn't really close the gap, but they played a pretty good game nonetheless, so they're going to stay in here, only dropping down 2 spots. SMU is going to drop down 8. I was kind of just looking at SMU, and they kind of got propped up by their win over UNC, but since then, I will say, they've had a really tough schedule in ACC play so far. Since then, every good team they've played, they haven't been able to beat. Now, I will say, a lot of these games for them have been on the road, and they have played very close games with all these teams. They lost by 4. This is since their big UNC win that kind of put them on the map. They lost by 4 to Clemson on the road. They lost by 7 to Duke on the road. They lost by 4 to Virginia at home, and then they just lost recently by 14 on the road to Louisville. Louisville very much needed that win. They were skidding. That was a really nice get-right game for Louisville. SMU, unfortunately, though, losing by 14, that does hurt. Tomorrow they have a huge home game, though, against NC State. We'll talk about NC State in a little bit, but that is a huge game. SMU is ranked 36th in KenPom right now. Top 25 offense. I still love their guard play. I still think this SMU team could potentially make some noise if they get into the tournament. I'd assume they'd get in. They're probably looking at 7 or 8 seed, maybe 9 seed, maybe 10 seed. 7 to 10 range, I would assume, for them right now. But SMU, I still think they're a pretty good team, even with their losses. Just because, I mean, all their losses are to pretty good teams, and they all have been close. A lot of them were on the road as well. You would like to win even like one of those, though. To be fair, they did beat UNC, though. Number 37 is going to be Indiana. I feel like I'm not hearing people talking about Indiana that much. They didn't get a single vote in the AP poll. Not sure what that's about. You have teams like Miami who's getting votes, St. Mary's, like so many teams, and I'm just sitting here really confused because Indiana now has won 3 games in a row since their loss to Michigan. Since their little 4-game losing streak they went on, I will say, yes, a lot of those games were blowouts, but it was to Nebraska, Michigan State, Iowa, Michigan. Like, 3 of those teams are top 10 teams, in my opinion. And then Iowa's a really good team as well. And since then, Indiana beat Rutgers, and then this past week beat Purdue at home by 5 points, and then go on the road to UCLA, win 98-97 in double overtime. UCLA was a team I had ranked in the Power 40 last week at number 40. UCLA is a top 40 KenPom team as well, and Indiana went in there, won that game. Coming off their big win, big rivalry win over Purdue, this was a huge week for Indiana. They were probably on the outside of the tournament picture, but now with this week alone, These 2 wins, huge for them. They have jumped right back into the tournament picture. They're 15-7. They're 33rd in KenPom right now. Top 30 offense, top 50 defense. This is a pretty good Indiana team. They've been in these rankings for quite some time, actually. They haven't been in recently because they have been losing, but like the past probably 4 or 5 weeks they haven't been in. But before that, they were in it for quite a while. I will say I still think this team's pretty good. Lamar Wilkerson averaging almost 20 points a game. Tucker DeVries, we know how good he is. Tatum Conaway is a really good guard. They've got some guys on this team. I wouldn't sleep on this Indiana team just because they went on their 4-game losing streak. People kind of forgot about them, but they're on a 3-game win streak. Huge week for them. They're going to jump back in to the Power 40. Number 36 is going to be Auburn, dropping down 2. Last week, they went on the road to Florida, going into Gainesville, winning that game. That was huge for them. This past week, they beat Texas. Texas was a team that has upset a few SEC teams, so that's a pretty good win. Texas also 34th in KenPom. I know they're 13-9, but they've got a top 10 offense, so that was a pretty good win for Auburn. They did suffer a loss, though, on the road to Tennessee. That's a tough one, but I think you'll live with those. We've talked about Auburn a lot. They're 14-8, so they are the team with the most losses in these rankings. But to be fair, they have the second-ranked strength of schedule on KenPom, only behind Alabama. Their schedule has been ridiculously hard. They still have a top 15 offense. I still love this team. Keyshawn Hall, Todd Pettiford. I've called them one of the most, if not the most fun team to watch in the country. Just watch an Auburn game, you'll see they have a great offense. Saturday, they have a huge home game against Alabama. Alabama is struggling right now. Auburn, it would hurt to already suffer a 9th loss. I think Auburn should be a fine tournament team. They'll probably be one of those tournament teams that's like finishes 18-12, something like that, if they even can. I will say their February schedule in the SEC does kind of open up for them, but these next 3 games, I guess, don't really. They play Alabama, Vanderbilt, and Arkansas. But after that, it's Mississippi State, Kentucky, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, LSU, and then Alabama to close out the season. So it's not crazy to say they could finish like 18-12. They'll probably be one of those like Big Ten SEC teams we see get in as like an 8 or 9 seed at 18-12, be a pretty good team. Maybe a little underseeded just because of their record, but I think Auburn's a great team. So I really wouldn't. I mean, losing on the road to Tennessee by 8 points, it's not the end of the world. We'll see how they look, though, home against Alabama. That could be an opportunity to pick up another huge win for them. Georgia's going to drop down 7, down to 35. Georgia's been struggling as of late. I think they've lost, 3 games in a row. This past week, they lose by 1 point in overtime to Tennessee, 86-85. And then they lost by 15 to Texas A&M. Both these games were at home. You would have liked to split this week if you are Georgia, but I think Georgia should be fine. Like, I don't know. They have such a high-powered offense. They play at such a fast pace. I will say their KenPom numbers have really taken a hit. They were really high up there before SEC play. Now sitting at 16-6, they're all the way down to number 40 in KenPom. So maybe Georgia is one of those like computer tricker teams. That could be the case, but I think they can still win some games. I mean, just because of the pace they play, it's going to be hard for some certain teams to keep up with that. So, yes, it is a tough week going 0-2. They're on a 3-game losing streak as well. Georgia's in a rough spot right now because they also play. I guess they only play LSU this week, but I mean after that, they got Florida coming. So Georgia's in a pretty tough part of their schedule. But I will say, I mean Jeremiah Wilkinson, he can win you a game. Like and with the speed they play at, that can win you a game. So Georgia, they're going to be a tournament team, but it is a little concerning what's going on right now. Utah State moving up 2 spot. Utah State had a huge week. We kind of highlighted this last week. Utah State, big game coming up for them against San Diego State. They ended up winning that game 71-66, win by 5 points at home. San Diego State was actually up in this game early, but Utah State pulled away late in the game. Utah State is a great team, man. I've been calling them the clear best team in the Mountain West. I don't know if I could say clear. I mean, I think San Diego State was without 2 starters in this game, so or it might have been without 1, and 1 was playing injured, something along those lines. Utah, I was kind of hating on the Mountain West, but I think there's a chance they could get 3 tournament teams in. You look at Utah State, they should be pretty safely in right now. We'll see if they can get an at-large bid. I think they will. San Diego State's 15-6, and then New Mexico's 18-4. I think both all three of those teams could potentially be considered for a tournament spot. Utah State plays New Mexico on Wednesday on the road. I wouldn't be shocked if New Mexico actually won that game. New Mexico's got the 26th ranked defense in KenPom, 44th overall. San Diego State's sitting at 43rd overall, and then Utah State up at 31st. So all three of these teams are top 45 KenPom teams. I wouldn't be upset with all three getting in, but I will say Utah State beat San Diego State. If they can beat New Mexico, especially on the road this Wednesday, my claim continues on that Utah State is the best team in the Mountain West. But I could see New Mexico winning that game realistically. NC State's going to move up 2 spots. They took care of business this past week. I believe they had 2 games, yes, against Syracuse and Wake Forest. They won both those games by beat Syracuse by 20 and Wake Forest by 18. So pretty good week for them. They got a huge game at SMU tomorrow. We talked about that game already when we talked about SMU, but that's a huge game for them. If NC State wins that game, if NC State goes 2-0 this week, because they also play Virginia Tech, they'll be sitting at 18-6. They're going to be pretty close to the AP poll top 25, probably mine as well. NC State continues to look really solid, really well improved. They started out a little slow, but since ACC play has started, they've been pretty lights out. They're 7-2 in the conference. That puts them tied with Virginia for 3rd in the conference right now, ahead of teams like UNC, Louisville, SMU, Miami. So, and only behind Duke and Clemson, tied with Virginia, like I said. So, NC State 23rd in KenPom as well. Top 20 offense, top 40 defense. Pretty good numbers. Will Wade's a great coach. I really like this NC State team. I think they could be sneaky. I think people forgot about them because they were top 25 preseason, and then they kind of struggle a little in non-conference play. But the past month, really, they've been really locked in. They've been playing really good ball, much better. So they're going to continue to move up if they keep winning. Villanova's going to stay put where they're at here. I believe they only played 1 game this past week, beating Providence by 14 points, taking care of business there. 28th in KenPom, 34th in offense, 39th in defense. I think Villanova's a solid team. Realistically, they can probably win a tournament game. I don't know if they can get to the Sweet 16, but they're 16-5, top 30 KenPom team. They got to be here. But like I said, I don't know what the ceiling really is for this team. Wisconsin has shown flashes to be really good. They have a good ceiling. They beat Michigan on the road. That is pretty impressive. They're the only team that has beat Michigan this season. So that's pretty good. But they've also shown that they can lose at home to a team like USC. But I will say, since that Michigan win, that has really just transformed their season. Since then, they are 7-1. They just beat Ohio State by 10 points. That was a huge game for both teams. They won that game. They got another huge game on Saturday at Indiana. Wisconsin's got a brutal stretch here coming up. They coming off their win against Ohio State. They now have to play at Indiana, at Illinois, home against Michigan State, at Ohio State, and home against Iowa, all in the span of 3 weeks. That is pretty tough stuff. We'll see how they fare there, but honestly, man, I think Wisconsin, they're a pretty solid team. 35th in offense, 64th in defense in KenPom, 38th overall. 2 really good guards. John Blackwell, obviously. Nick Boyd's really good as well. I think Wisconsin's a pretty good team. They're staying put where they're at 31st. UCF. UCF's been all over the rankings the past month or two, really. It's they'll lose a game they probably shouldn't, but then they'll upset some team. They beat Kansas earlier this season. They played pretty close against Arizona, but then they got blown out against Iowa State, but then they come back and beat Texas Tech. So it's what's going on with UCF? They also have a loss to Oklahoma State in there. They're a hard team to figure out. I will say, with the flashes they've shown offensively, they're 33rd in offensive rating, 45th overall in KenPom, but they're 17-4 in the Big 12, 6-3 in conference play in the Big 12. That is really impressive stuff. Wins over Texas Tech, wins over Kansas, played Arizona really well. They play at Houston. This is one of those games where UCF will just go out and get blown out, and it's okay, what do I do with this team? But that win over Texas Tech, they're 17-4 in the Big 12, just beat Texas Tech, who was red hot. They got to be pretty high in the rankings, so they're moving up 11 spots up to number 30, but they've been close to the top 10. I don't know if they've gotten in. Actually, they may have once, but they've been 27th, 28th. They've also been out of the rankings. They're just kind of up and down. It's streaky team. That's kind of what we're getting at with UCF. I will say this was the team I predicted to finish last in the Big 12. Pretty impressive that they've been this good this season. But like I said, at Houston on Wednesday, that's going to be a really hard game for them to win. Miami, Ohio, staying put where they're at. I understand they're undefeated, but yes, and I've been saying this, if they keep winning, they're going to have to keep moving up, and that is true. They are moving up, but they're 89th in KenPom. Their strength of schedule is ranked 337th. It's just they haven't played anyone. 22-0 is impressive. Them in Arizona, they're the only two undefeateds left. So 29th, I think, is fair. I know they're ranked in the ACC, in the AP poll, which I agree with. I'm not mad at that at all. But realistically, if we were to put Miami, Ohio against any of these teams, do they beat any of them? I mean, I don't know. They can probably, maybe they can beat a couple. I don't know. At a neutral site, do they beat Auburn? I don't think so. I don't think they beat Villanova, NC State. They probably don't beat. Could they beat Miami? I mean, maybe they could probably beat Miami, but maybe they could beat Utah State, St. Mary's. I don't know. Miami, Ohio is hard. I mean, yes, they're undefeated, so they have to be here, but I'm just being realistic. Their schedule is just terrible. And I know teams didn't want to schedule them because they were afraid. There's not much. If the team that schedules them, let's say a Duke schedules them, they're not going to get much for winning that game because they're supposed to win. But if they lose, all of a sudden, they're in huge trouble. So I understand Miami of Ohio is doing all they can, which I do respect. So like I said, they're never going to move down. As long as they keep winning, they're never going to move down in my rankings. But as of right now, I do keep them where they're at 29th. I felt like there was reason for this. Number 28 is going to be Texas A&M. I feel like I have to jump them over Miami, Ohio. This is the team solely in possession of the SEC. They're 7-1 in the SEC. The next closest team is Florida at 7-2. They're 17-4 on the season. Now, I will say, they have not played any of the good SEC teams besides Tennessee, and they did lose that game. Recently, they did. I mean, last week they won on the road against Georgia, so that was probably their best win, though, in SEC play, unless you want to say at Auburn. But, I mean, listen to the teams they played in the SEC. LSU, Auburn, Oklahoma, Tennessee, which they lost, Texas, Mississippi State, South Carolina, and Georgia. The only ranked team they played there was Tennessee, and they lost that game. Now, maybe they could have won. They lost on the road, double overtime. So now Texas A&M is going to have a huge test this week, 2 huge games at Alabama and then home against Florida on Saturday. I think if you split those games, you're happy if you're Texas A&M. But I will say, Buckyball first year, the fact that they're this good, it is pretty impressive stuff. They're 27th in KenPom as well. They got the 36th ranked offense, 34th ranked defense. For Buckyball, for Sanford, who was such a high offensive powered team, they're actually more well-rounded than I would have thought. So shout out to Texas A&M. They're doing a great job in Bucky McMillan's first year as the coach. They're up 5. 27 is going to be Iowa. It's the same thing every week with this Iowa team. They're probably not going to get upset in the tournament. They beat everyone they're supposed to beat. But they're not going to beat a team that's better than them. I'm sorry. I just don't believe that's who this team is. They're 16-5, 20th in offense, 18th in defense, 19th in KenPom. That's really good stuff. But they play so slow. They rely a lot on Bennett Sturtz offensively. And yes, Drake did play pretty well. Drake won a game. Drake beat Missouri last year in the tournament. They were close with Texas Tech, but I don't know. You could argue that Drake team was even with the Missouri team. I mean, you could argue they're better. They beat them. But they weren't better than Texas Tech, and Texas Tech won. We've seen, Iowa doesn't have that, big win. Maybe it's at Indiana, but Iowa's better than Indiana. Iowa's better than UCLA. They got blown out by Michigan State. They lost to Iowa State. They lost to Illinois. They lost to Purdue. You know what I'm saying? Iowa just, they don't have that big win. And that's what I'm kind of looking for. Now, they're going to have chances in the Big Ten. You're always going to have chances. You're going to play great teams. But yeah, it's they play so slow. They rely very heavily on one player offensively. It's not a great recipe to make a deep run. But like I said, they probably won't get upset. I just don't know what the ceiling is. But we've said that for a long time with this Iowa team. Kentucky at 26. They're going to move down 2 for me, but Kentucky is really hard to figure out. It's like they lose Jalen Lowe, Jane Quaintons goes out, and they're all of a sudden better. It's really hard to figure out who this Kentucky team truly is. They've won 6 of their last 7 games, though. I will say they are moving down 2 spots, but they won on the road against Arkansas on Saturday. The problem is earlier in the week, they played Vanderbilt, a team that was on, I think, a 3-game losing streak. They lost by 25 points in that one. They look terrible. They only put up 55. But then they go out on the road against Arkansas, win that game. I will say the officiating in that Kentucky-Arkansas game, that was really bad stuff. I don't know. Technical fouls left and right. I don't know what was going on there. But yeah, Kentucky 30th in KenPom, 45th in offense, 28th in defense. I don't know. They played a tough schedule. It's so hard to figure out with this Kentucky team. I need to see them play more. I would love for them to get consistent. They are just all over the place right now, which, could be a good thing sometimes. They could go on the road and beat Arkansas, a team that I'm very high on, but they could also play Vanderbilt and lose by 25 points. It's really hard to understand this Kentucky team. Like I said, I feel like since they've lost some of their big guys, key players, they've gotten better. I really don't know what to think about this Kentucky team. 25th is going to be Louisville. They're going to move up 1 for me. They did lose last week to Duke they did lose to Duke last week, but I will say we recorded our college basketball rankings video last week on Tuesday, so the rankings last week already accounted for that Duke game. So realistically, since those rankings, they've only played 1 game, and they beat SMU by 14 points, a team that I had ranked, I think, 30th last week, so pretty big win for them. Michael Brown Jr. is officially back, so hopefully that gives them some life because they were struggling for a little bit there, but this is still a top 15 offense, 31st in defense, 16th overall in KenPom. Louisville was I think they were a top 8 team at one point this season. They were a top 10 team for a few weeks. This is a team with a really high ceiling, and now that they're fully healthy, I wouldn't be shocked if Louisville goes on a little bit of a run here, and their schedule is pretty favorable to do so here to start out February. So I really wouldn't be shocked if Louisville kind of just slowly, you forget about them a little bit, but this is still a really good team. Don't sleep on Louisville. I think they're going to be a little sneaky here in the next few weeks. I think they're going to get on a pretty big win streak here. Alabama is doing quite the opposite of that. They're not doing too hot. They've lost 2 of their last 3. They did win Tuesday by 26 points against Missouri. That's a pretty impressive win, but then they go out against Florida. At Florida, they looked absolutely dead in that game. They lost 100-77. Florida absolutely manhandled them. Alabama is now ranked 21st in KenPom, still the number 3 offense, but 66 in defense. I will say they have the toughest schedule in terms of strength of schedule, and they're 14-7. That's pretty good. So I'm not ready to move Alabama out of my top 25, but they do have a pretty tough week. Home against A&M and then at Auburn on Saturday. Those are 2 pretty tough games, but if they can win both those games, they're going to be right back. They're going to be right back up in the rankings. And 24 is not crazy low as well. I will say I still love this team's upside. I think they have a really high ceiling. We've seen Nate Oates' teams make the Final Four before. LeBaron Philon, Aiden Holloway, Latrell Wrightsell, they have the guards to do it. LeBaron Philon, I said earlier in the season, he's not Walter Clayton, obviously, but I compared this Alabama team a little bit to the Walter Payton, Walter Clayton Florida Gators last season. Obviously, Florida was a much better team than this Alabama team, but they are a little bit similar to me. You look at Florida last season, Walter Clayton, elite closer, elite scorer, LeBaron Philon, 22 points a game, really good in the clutch. Aiden Holloway and Latrell Wrightsell for Alabama, kind of similar. Not the same, obviously, but Elijah Martin, Will Richard. Florida had 3 elite guards, and Alabama has 3 really good guards as well. So I will say everyone's kind of hating on Alabama because of the Charles Bediako situation. We're not going to focus on that. I don't understand it. I don't understand the eligibility rules, but I really have never. So he's on the team. There's no point in arguing it. Yes, I agree. He probably shouldn't be able to play college basketball. I mean, this dude, And now, like, UCLA is trying to get a guy. Because the problem is it just leads to a whole bunch of different rabbit holes. So I think there's just got to be a firm rule, and that's that. But he's on the team now. Like, what are you going to do about it? There's no reason to complain. But, yeah, Alabama, really concerning. Losing by that much to Florida. They looked absolutely outclassed in that game. And I watched the whole thing. Like, they looked really rough in that one. And not really in the first half. Like, I think Florida was up 10 in the first half, but Alabama wasn't too bad, but man, they were turning it over. It was a rough game for Alabama, so they're going to move down 3 here. Number 23 is going to be St. John's, staying put where they're at. They continue to take care of business. They're on a pretty big win streak right now. They're 16-5. They've got UConn coming to their place on Friday. Huge game for them. If they can win that game, all of a sudden St. John's is, I'd say St. John's is back. I mean, it's hard not to say. If St. John's goes out and beats 21-1 UConn, all of a sudden St. John's is going to be top 15 team, probably. I mean, they're 22nd in KenPom, 22nd in offense, 21st in defense. Really well-rounded team. Rick Pitino's a great coach. I wouldn't be surprised if St. John's win this game. I really wouldn't. Am I going to bet on it? No. Like, I think UConn's the better team. I think UConn should win, but that's not necessarily how it always goes. St. John's gets it at home. They're on a pretty big win streak right now. They could really win that game. Clemson's going to come in at 22 for me, staying put where they're at as well. They continue to look really good in ACC play. They're 18-4. Only played one game against Pitt. Took care of business there. I feel like Clemson's had a pretty easy ACC schedule, and it really doesn't pick up all that much for them. Like, Clemson's got a pretty favorable ACC schedule. They've had a pretty favorable schedule so far. They're 8-1 in the conference, second only behind undefeated Duke in the conference. Clemson ranks at number 32 in KenPom. Top 15 defense, 69th in offense, though, not great there. But top 15 defense can get you pretty far, so they're going to stay put where they're at. They continue to take care of business. Arkansas, kind of talked about this already, but it's a tough loss, obviously, losing. Like, if you're Coach Calipari's, especially losing to Kentucky at home as well in your building, a Kentucky team that was dealing with injuries, that was just coming off a blowout loss to Vanderbilt. You would have liked to win that game, but we've said the same thing with Arkansas. Like, they can beat a lot of teams. They could also lose a lot of teams. It's so weird how sports work. Like, Arkansas literally 2 weeks ago beat Vanderbilt by 25 points. Kentucky earlier last week losing to Vanderbilt by 25 points and then coming out and beating Arkansas on the road. It's weird, like the triangles like that. It's just weird stuff. But Arkansas got a number 7 offense. The defense isn't great, but I think their offense can carry. I think they could make a run in the tournament. I really do. I think Coach Cal, he kind of just lets them play. And Darius Acuff, the whole team, like Trevin Brazil, Malik Thomas, Billy Richmond, all these guys, DJ Wagner, they all play, and they can all play. Like, they're a really talented team. So Arkansas does have to move down 6. Tough loss against Kentucky at home, but I think they should be fine. Tennessee, I'm starting to come around a little on Tennessee. Like, I've been Tennessee's biggest doubter, but they had a really good week. I can't lie, this past week, and they've been pretty good. Like, they've won 4 of their last 5. They beat A&M. They lost to Kentucky by 2 points, but then they went on the road to Bama, won that game, went on the road to Georgia, won that game, and then beat Auburn. That's a pretty good little stretch they just went on. Jacoby Gillespie, Nate Emmett, still looking really good. I still worry about the ceiling. I still do, but top 15 defense, 15-6. They got to keep moving up if they keep winning. Yeah, it's really just that. So they're moving up 5. Really good week for them. Really good stretch they've been on. St. Louis continues to look amazing. Continuing to look like the best real mid-major, because you can't count Gonzaga as a mid-major. I'm sorry. But yeah, they're 21-1, 25th in KenPom, 20th in defense, 40th in offense. It's really good stuff, man. And their only losses by 1 point to Stanford, which was in November. Like, they are playing out of their mind right now, and they've been they've been beating these A10 teams by a whole lot of points. Like, none of these games have really been that close, except for like Duquesne. They played a few weeks back. They won by 4. Then George Washington, they won by 3, but like they just beat Dayton by 30. They beat St. Bonaventure by 35. They beat Richmond by 25. They beat Fordham by 20. They beat VCU by 9. Like, they have been lights out. This is I think St. Louis could be a second weekend team. I think they're that good. I think they're a real legit, like, really good team. BYU, moving down 5 to number 18. We got to talk about BYU because I'm starting to see a little something here. I kind of noticed it last week. I didn't want to fully come out and say it, but BYU doesn't really have a great win. And I also noticed this. I said this last week, but AJ Dybantsa, in the games in the big games they played against the really good teams, he's kind of struggled a little bit. Realistically, Texas Tech, when they played Texas Tech and lost by 13, he wasn't great. He wasn't very good in that game. 13 points, 6 for 17 from the field. Then he goes out against Utah and drops 40 or whatever it was, 44. So I kind of had to shut up a little bit. But then against Arizona, I know he finished with 24, but he shot 25% from the field. That's obviously not great. He made a lot of free throws, though. And then against Kansas, he just looked absolutely outclassed by Darryn Peterson. Still finished with 17, but he was the third highest scorer on his team. Richie Saunders stole the show from him. He dropped 33 points against Kansas. Rob Wright had 18. I still love this trio for BYU. I still love the offense. I think this team has what it takes to make a deep run. Top 15 offense, top 35 defense. They can make a run, but against Kansas, man, Darryn Peterson just looked like the much better player. We'll talk about Kansas' side of things. We'll talk about Darryn Peterson, obviously, but yeah, I'm a little worried about BYU because they don't really have the win, but they're 17-4. Their computer numbers are amazing. They play all these good teams close, but they just can't seem to win one of these, and I would love them to. They play Houston on Saturday at home. Could that be the chance they finally get one? I think it could. Will it happen, though? We'll see. BYU's definitely in need of a win like that, though. A big win. So they're going to move down 5. Their resume, I mean, yes, they have really good players. They have one of the best players in the country. They have one of the best offenses in the country. They're 17-4 in the Big 12. That's really good accomplishment, and they play a lot of good teams, and they play them well. But you got to win a few of them. That's just how it works. So BYU dropping a little bit here. Number 17 is going to be Virginia for me. I love this Virginia team. I've been high on them all season. They're 18-3. They continue to take care of business. They did have a little bit of a struggle game against Notre Dame, double overtime, but they won. So I'm not going to punish them. They're staying put where they're at. UNC, kind of same thing. I honestly, I know UNC beat Virginia. I know, so I have to have them ranked at, but I feel better about Virginia than UNC. Is that crazy? Maybe it's just the KenPom numbers, but UNC is still 29th in KenPom. Their defense isn't great. They don't defend very well, especially from 3. But Caleb Wilson, they've got a really good front court. They rebound well, so they're going to beat a lot of teams just off that. They play Duke on Saturday, huge game. It's in Chapel Hill as well. It's a top 15 game in the AP poll for Duke versus 14 North Carolina. That's a huge game. If North Carolina wins that game, then maybe I'll have to kind of take it back. I feel like every time I'd say I don't like a team, they prove me wrong. I said I wasn't a big Tennessee fan, and they're looking a lot better. I've kind of had my doubts about UNC. If they beat Duke, then all of a sudden I'm looking like an idiot over here. Number 15 is going to be Vanderbilt. Really big bounce back week for them, coming off their 3-game losing streak. But this past week they beat Kentucky by 25 points. Really impressive stuff there. They kind of squeak by against Ole Miss, but I think Vanderbilt's going to be fine. They're moving up 4. I'm a little concerned. I don't think they're that national title contender that we once thought they were, but they're still top 20 in offense and defense. Really well-rounded team, really fun team. Yeah, 19-3. Got to be a top 15 team in my opinion. 14 is going to be Purdue. They did just beat Maryland, but before that they were on a 3-game losing streak, folks. A little worrisome from Purdue. I worry about the defense. I don't know if this team can win at all. Realistically, they're going to keep dropping if they keep losing games, but they're 18-4. I'd probably still say they could win it all, but will they? That's the real question. They're 8th in KenPom, 2nd in offense. I mean, when you have a guy like Braden Smith facilitating the offense, you're going to be high up there. But 25th in defense, it's not great. It's just not going to cut it, if we're being honest. So that concerns me for sure. The defense, especially, some games they look pretty. They look okay. They're really inconsistent on defense, and even within games, they'll be have some good possessions, have some really rough ones. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty tough stretch for them. Losing to UCLA, Illinois, and Indiana all in a row, that is tough. They did absolutely demolished Maryland, but Maryland's an absolute train wreck this season. Yeah, Purdue, a little worrisome. I'm a little worried. Purdue was the consensus, like, them and Houston were the consensus top 2, and neither of those teams are even top 5. So, pretty crazy how seasons can happen like that. But, yeah, man, Purdue moving down 2. Tough little stretch for them, but hopefully they can figure it out. Florida moving up 5. I'm sorry, Florida's a good team. Like, they're a really good team. I think Florida might get back to a Final Four. Is that crazy to say? I think Florida is like a really good team, and I've had my doubts about them. Like, their guard play, starting out the season, it was not good, and even like the rest of their team. But Florida, man, I'm telling you, this team is playing different right now. I still think they might have the best front court in the country. Thomas Houck, Alex Condon, Ruben Chinyelu was absolutely insane. He's averaging 12 points, 11 rebounds. He's a really good defender as well. And then you got Boogie Flan and Xavier Lee, who have shown flashes to be really good players. I still do worry about the three-point shooting. Like, they're shooting 29% as a team. But that has gone up a little bit. And if that can continue to go up, I mean, look at this team KenPom numbers-wise. They're 7th in KenPom overall with 6 losses. The next closest team with 6 losses is Louisville, all the way down at 16. So, like, I know they suffered a lot of losses, but, like, you look at all these other teams, like, Arizona 0 losses. You got Michigan, Duke with UConn, Gonzaga with 1 loss. You got Houston, Iowa State, Nebraska with 2 losses, Illinois with 3, Michigan State with 3, Purdue with 4. Like, all these teams up here at the top in KenPom have very little losses. And then you're seeing Florida 16-6, but you watch them play. They are so good defensively, 7th in defensive rating, 15th in offense. They have played the number 4 strength of schedule, by the way. One of the toughest schedules, and they're 7th in KenPom. I don't think they can win it all, because they don't shoot the threes good enough, for me at least. They don't have the good enough guard play. But could they make the Final Four? For sure. I really think they could. I think Florida is a really strong team. Florida might be like a 4 seed coming into the tournament, and I see Florida. I could see Florida being one of the 1 seeds. I really could. We'll see what transpires here the last like month and a half before March Madness, but I'm telling you, Florida is a legit team. They're moving up 5. I love Florida right now. If they could just get the shooting right, I'm telling you, like, if they can start shooting well and the guards will be like 100% consistent, then maybe we could talk about them winning it all. But they're still a really good team. Texas Tech, I do believe Texas Tech is a good team. I know they lost to UCF by 8 on the road, but before that they were lights out. They were on a 5-game win streak before that, beating BYU, winning on the road against Baylor, beating Houston. Texas Tech is legit for me. They're playing Kansas tonight. Huge game for them. They get it at home. I can see that one going either way. Top 15 game. Both teams 16-5, really evenly matched. JT Toppin, Christian Anderson versus Darryn Peterson versus Flory Badunga. That's going to be a great game. I do think Texas Tech is a really good team, though. But I'm always high on Texas Tech. Defensively, 44th, though, in KenPom. A little bit worrisome, but 10th in offense. That's really good stuff. 11th is Kansas, moving up 3. I think I've said this before, but Kansas could be like a Final Four team as well. They're 16-5. This Kansas team is so good. Darryn Peterson, I mean, he's the best player in the country. He's not going to win National Player of the Year because he hasn't played enough. He's been injured, but he is the best player in the country. He's going to be the number 1 NBA pick. I do wonder, though, what the NBA GM scouts think about the injury stuff, because this dude just can't finish games. He plays the whole first half, and then he'll just cramp up, and all of a sudden he's out. Like, they were panning over to him so much, and they always do, but especially against BYU, and it looked like he just wasn't even trying really to come back in the game. I mean, I'm not gonna question him, but it is a little bit weird, I will say, with all the stuff about him. But when he plays, man, this guy's ridiculous. Like, if it is just a minutes restriction thing, I don't understand why they don't split the minutes. I don't understand why he plays the whole first half and then sits the whole second half. I'm not really sure, but regardless, Kansas, they're putting together a lot of great wins. I really like this Kansas team. I said this before, but I said this a while back. I haven't said this in a while, though. I think it benefited Kansas that Darryn Peterson was out for those, whatever it was, 8, 9, 10 games, because all the other guys, Melvin Council, Flory Badunga, all their guys got experience without him, and that really helped their depth. Trey White as well. Like, I think this team is a really solid team. They've got a lot of really good players. Yeah, they're up to number 11. The first team to miss my top 10, but moving into the top 10, at number 10, I'm going to keep Michigan State here. I don't think Michigan State can win it all just because offensively they're not quite there. In the tournament, you kind of need like the guy, and maybe it is Jeremy Fears, because I will say the past like few games he's been getting his career high like every game against Rutgers. This dude had 29, absolutely insane stuff. They beat Rutgers in overtime. They survived that one, and then against Michigan, he had 31. Like, this guy is kind of becoming that for them. And we saw this with Michigan State. We saw that happen. Like, I was wondering, do they have the guy? Do they have the offensive ceiling? But then Jace Richardson kind of became that last year. That's kind of what we're seeing with Jeremy Fears here in Michigan State. So, could Michigan State make an Elite Eight, make a Final Four? For sure. Like, defensively, they're still number 2 in KenPom, only behind Michigan. And they were number 1 before playing Michigan. So I still think Michigan State can make a deep run. It's just, can they win it all? I really don't know. I would lean towards no, though. Nebraska, can Nebraska win it all? I would honestly say yes. I really do think they can. 25th in offense, 11th in defense. Like, this is one of the best defenses in the country offensively. Like, they nearly... I know they went 0-2 this past week, and they're only moving down 4, but they lost by 3 on the road against Michigan, and then by 9 to a red-hot Illinois team. You would have liked to win one of those games for Nebraska, but against Michigan, they were without 2 starters, and they maybe should have won that game. The refs were a little questionable at the end. They lost by 3 points on the road to number 3 Michigan at the time without 2 starters. That is really good stuff. Michigan also beat Michigan State on the road, so I feel like just by that, and then Nebraska also beat Michigan State earlier this season, so you got to keep Nebraska ahead of Michigan State. The undefeated season does come to an end. The win streak, 24 games, does come to an end, but Nebraska is a really good team. I honestly feel better about them. Watching those 2 games in full, like, Nebraska is a really good team, man. They are a really good team. If you don't have them in your top 10, I know they went 0-2 this past week, but you and like, people were panicking about this. People were calling them fraudulent now. You clearly didn't watch the games, because this Nebraska team is still legit. Number 8 for me is going to be Houston. I kind of have thought for a little bit that Houston quietly might still be like the best team in the country. They are 19-2, 11th in offense, 10th in defense. Kingston Flemings is ridiculous. Emmanuel Sharp is ridiculous. Miles Uzan, Christianek, Jojo Tugler. Like, they have so many good players. I'm telling you, man, don't forget about Houston. They play BYU on the road. They got to go on the road into Utah to play BYU on Saturday. Huge game for them. They also play UCF Wednesday. 2 pretty tough games for Houston. We'll see what they're made of. Houston, not to mention, in the month of February, has to play at BYU, at Iowa State, home against Arizona, and at Kansas. 4 huge games for them this month. 4 of their 8 games this month. That's pretty tough stuff. We're going to know all we need to know about Houston once they enter March Madness. Because if they win 3 of those 4, like, Houston could potentially be a 1 seed if they win 3 of those 4, realistically. So, Houston, I think there's a chance they still could be the best team in the country. They're at number 8 for me. Iowa State going to stay put. They took care of business. They went through their yearly, like, mid-January stretch where they lose games, and they lost 2. But since then, they've been really locked in. They've been blowing out everybody since those 2 losses. They don't really have a tough game this week. They only play Baylor, so it should be a pretty easy week for them. They're 6th in offense, 6th in defense, 4th overall in KenPom. Still a great team, obviously. Gonzaga staying put where they're at number 6. They beat St. Mary's. Really good win for them. Best win in conference play for them so far. They do play at St. Mary's at the end of this month, but they should continue to roll in West Coast Conference play. They're 11th in KenPom right now, top 10 defense, top 25 offense, really good stuff from them. And this is without Braden Huff, who is their second best player behind Graham Ike. Illinois, they've got to move up into the top 5. They're up to number 5 for me, up 4 spots. I think they've won, I'm not sure actually what their win streak is. They've won 11 in a row. They're 19-3. They have just recently beaten Purdue on the road by 6 points. And then they just went on the road to Nebraska, won by 9 points. Their only losses this season are to Alabama by 4, UConn by 13, and Nebraska, which they just kind of avenged that. They also have a win at Ohio State, against Tennessee, against Texas Tech, at Iowa, like I mentioned, at Purdue, at Nebraska. Like, they have been putting together multiple road wins that are of quality. They have a chance to pick up another one at Michigan State. Now, that's going to be the number 1 offense versus the number 2 defense in KenPom. Illinois' offense, by the way, ridiculous. Keaton Wagler, that dude is absolutely insane. The fact that he barely got recruited out of high school and now he's going to be a lottery pick in the NBA draft, crazy stuff. Yeah, I said this before the season started, that Illinois had the chance to be top 3 offense in the country, maybe the best. Like, I think coming into the season, my top 3 offenses were Illinois, Purdue, and BYU. Which, honestly, I mean, I'll take that. I know BYU's 12th in KenPom, but there's an argument to be made that they're better than 12th. I'd probably argue it. So that's pretty good stuff for me, I will say. But, yeah, Illinois, they got to be a top 5 team right now. Duke's going to stay put where they're at. They continue to roll in ACC play. They're still undefeated. They got to go on the road to UNC, though, Saturday. Definitely tune into that game. It's going to be a huge test for both teams. Cameron Boozer, this team's ridiculous. Top 5 in offense and defense. It's insane stuff. Number 3 is going to be UConn, actually, for me. I'm going to have to drop them down. I kind of identified UConn as like when they were ranked like 5th, 6th, 7th in my rankings, I was saying UConn might just be the best team in the country. They might win it all. I don't remember if I said this last week, but I kind of want to pump the brakes a little bit. Realistically, offensively, 31st in KenPom, I don't think you can win it all with that. You kind of just have to be top 20 in both. That's kind of like the unwritten rule. But that's like the trend. Now, they do have a top 5 defense, but like offensively, 31st, don't love that. Big East play, they have been cruising through, but actually, that's not even true. They've kind of struggled with some of their games. At St. John's is a huge game for them on Friday. I'll definitely be watching that game because I really need to watch both those teams. I feel like I haven't sat down and watched St. John's in a while. And then UConn, obviously, that's the biggest test they've had since their non-conference play. Like, they haven't played. Same thing with Duke. Both these teams, they haven't played like a great team in a while. So 2 huge tests, 2 huge road tests here for number 3 and number 4 for me. But I felt like the team at number 3 deserved to be bumped back ahead. Michigan, with a win at Michigan State, I feel like you got to put them out of UConn. They're also back to number 1 in KenPom. Them and Arizona are very close, but Michigan is also back to the number 1 defense, and they're 20-1. They just beat Michigan State on the road. Huge rivalry game for them. They beat Nebraska at home earlier in the week, and then won on the road against Michigan State. 2 top 10 wins for them in the same week. You got to put them ahead of UConn at this point. But Arizona, still the number 1 team, and I've kind of been trying to identify the teams that aren't Arizona to win it all. But realistically, it might just be Arizona that wins it all. Like, I've been sitting here, I feel like I haven't talked about them, but I've been trying, because I usually don't love picking the number 1 overall seed because I feel like it just never works out. But it might just be, we might just all be overthinking this, and it might just be Arizona. It's really hard to find a flaw in this team, if we're being honest. They're 22-0 in the Big 12. That alone should just be enough, but they've got Braden Burries, Jaden Bradley, Koa Pete, insane team, 22-0, and it's ridiculous. Now, I will say, look at the stretch Arizona has to play. So they play Oklahoma State Saturday at home. After that, though, they play at Kansas, home against Texas Tech, home against BYU, at Houston, at Baylor, and home against Kansas. That is a ridiculous, after that Oklahoma State game, that is a ridiculous 6-game stretch. Oh, and not to mention, in March 2nd, they play Iowa State. So that is a 7-game stretch that includes 6 top 16 teams, if you're going off the AP poll, and then a road game against Baylor in the middle of all that. So Arizona, if you have any doubts, just tune in here for the next few weeks. It would be insane if you have doubts at this point. They're 22-0, but if you somehow do, just tune in, watch them. They're going to be tested a whole lot. So Arizona, they've been number 1 for a long time, and they're going to continue to be if they keep winning. It's kind of insane how good they are. It's really hard to find a flaw with this team. That's what I'm saying. They might just be the team that wins it all. We may just be overthinking this. But that's going to do it for the Week 14 College Basketball Power 40 rankings. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure you go down there, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, turn on the noties to make sure you don't miss whenever we upload. We do college basketball, college football, NFL, NBA, and MLB content, so if any of that interests you, again, please subscribe. That would be greatly appreciated. Make sure you comment down below what you agree, what you disagree, any thoughts about my rankings. But once again, that is going to do it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys on Wednesday with our NFL Super Bowl game predictions. Make sure you tune in for that one.